Sean Fennessey.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is the Big Picture, a conversation show about Sinners! Later in this episode, I'll be joined by Ryan Coogler, the writer-director of Sinners. His fifth feature film and first wholly original story. It's a sexy, violent, complex, entertaining vampire horror movie. It's also a story about twin brothers and our duality as men. It's an erotic, Deep South musical. And it's an exploration of the American blues. It's a lot of movie. It also looks and sounds phenomenal. If you want to know how and why he did it, stick around for my conversation with Ryan. I met Ryan in 2017, never had him on the show before. He's been at the top of my wish list for many, many years. I hope you'll stick around for our conversation. Seated now with us is Van Lathan. What's up, Van?
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
The duality of men before me.
Yes.
Right here. The smokestack twins right here.
That's who's who is really the question
Yes,
here.
That's very true.
Who is going to turn and who is not going to turn?
Yeah.
Interesting question. So, Van, it's been a minute since you've been on the show.
A little bit.
When was
What
the
you
last
been
time?
up to?
I can't remember what we did last. I don't remember.
We had a very fun conversation about Joker Folia de.
Oh, yeah.
I think that might have been the last
That might
time.
have been
And,
the last time I was on, yeah.
and Amanda was on leave at that time. So
Yeah,
you
that
guys
was-
haven't been together in
That
forever.
was 6 months. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that was Sai's first. I mean, Sai hasn't seen that movie, but
Mhm.
that was his movie weekend. So
You should show him Joker too.
Yeah.
See what he thinks.
yeah, he'd be
It's
excited.
kind of made for the mentality of a
I
6
never
month old.
watched it because I listened to your podcast, which I very much enjoyed, but it didn't really even seem like you guys cared about it or liked it. So
No one cared about it. It's almost
Yeah.
as if the movie never happened. It's a
Yeah.
weird phenomenon.
It is a very strange thing. It is notably the same movie studio that is releasing Sinners.
look at you.
Joker Folia de, a huge bomb.
Pro.
Sinners, a movie of incredible importance to Warner Brothers this year. As I said, written and directed by Coogler. Stars, as most of his films star, Michael B. Jordan, of course, Haley Steinfeld, Miles Caton, newcomer, Jack O'Connell, Wunmi Masaku, Jamie Lawson, Omar Miller, Lee Jun Lee, and Delroy Lindo. Stacked cast for this movie. He also has reassembled the Black Panther department heads murder team, just some of the best in the business. Production designer Hannah Beekler, cinematography by Autumn Durald Arkpaw, Michael P. Shaver, his editor, and Ludwig Göransson, the composer, who is now, I think, has just kind of grabbed the belt. And we don't need to necessarily start the full conversation around music,
Sure.
but the music of this movie is way more crucial than I ever would have expected based on the marketing.
And essential to the movie. I mean, it is a movie about music. I mean, literally in the plot, there are blues musicians and a blues club, and then other musicians who show up,
They certainly do.
and also the themes and ideas of the movie. So I think you can talk about the music.
We definitely will. We'll go in depth because it's not just Göransson who's making music in this movie. There's all kinds of different genres and different cultural traditions that are portrayed in the movie. But let's start very simply. Van, I'll ask you, what did you think of the movie Sinners?
I thought it was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I had talked to you about it because you had seen it before me. I went to the LA screening. I think it was last week before last. A complete cultural experience. And look, I'm not saying that the movie is perfect, right? But what I'm saying is parts of the movie are effective because they aren't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not, to me, trying to be perfect as much as they are trying to be deeply authentic. And as we talk about originality lacking in Hollywood now with some of the IP stuff, I think people are saying originality, but they're actually meaning authenticity. They want a story that from a filmmaker that feels like they have to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And you know when you're watching a movie that someone feels like they have to tell a story because they take great great care, should I say. They take great care and tell it in great detail. And not always like you would want them to tell it, but always the way they do.
Yeah.
And when you come away from Sinners, you got like, this guy has something to say. And he packaged it in something that is very watchable, sexy, but it's not easy, right? He's got something to say. So I was actually blown away, not just by the execution of it, but by how daring the movie was and how it elevated a lot of the performers in it. It's as good as Mike has ever been. The music is fantastic. I haven't seen music used in a film like this in a while. So my expectations were high, and the movie still managed to exceed them.
What'd you think, Amanda?
I completely agree with Van, but I think because I saw it third of this group, and my expectations were very high for it as a movie of ideas and a movie of, and Sean, you said to me at some point, and I hope this is not a spoiler, you were like, this is a movie about the blues, and I don't think people know that.
Yeah.
And I really admire Coogler's work as well, and I know him as someone who can create like big, broad studio movies with a lot of, with ideas and themes and things to say inside of them. So I was expecting all of that, and the movie totally delivers on that. It is also just like a straight up fun vampire movie, it is, and it really. And so I almost went in, and I say that in a complimentary way as well. I think Coogler he finds the perfect balance between genre, not even like a balance between. He managed to do like full genre movie and full like movie, like ideas movie. We're serious people, like all in one. You can have it all if you're Ryan Coogler. So I really, really liked it, but as we're talking about it for other people, I just don't want to undersell the fact that like the vampires like go for it. And, he sets up like a whole world, as Van said, and characters and stakes. And then, and it is really, I had this moment because I was so immersed in this world that he builds in like 30s Mississippi. And then I realized, oh, I see. Now we're all assembled here. And now like the vampires are like just going to go for it. And I was like, wow, I didn't even realize what you were doing and how deftly you were putting together this framework that I do recognize, but like, there it is. And here we go. So that's cool. And I really enjoyed it. And also like, we need movies like this. So, the world does.
Yeah, I fully agree. Over the years, I've had a lot of conversations with people. Bill is somebody who asks us about this from time to time, sort of like, who is the next generation of people that are going to make the kinds of movies that we want to go see? And the list was always very short, but it was the same handful of names. It was Damien Chazelle, it was Greta Gerwig, it was Barry Jenkins, it was the Safdies, it was Ari Aster, it was Denis Villeneuve. It was a pretty short list. Coogler was always on the list for me. I like all of his movies with some serious reservations about Wakanda Forever, which we talked about on the show some years ago. Yeah. So interesting to me that this is the film that he has chosen to do after Wakanda Forever, because it feels like a real palate cleanser for that movie, which is not to say that it's a rejection of Wakanda Forever. It's not. But it is so outside of any of the mythological framework that he has lived in as a writer and director for the last 7 or 8 years that you can really feel him flexing his muscles. He's very loyal to vampire stories in the movie, but everything else in the movie, I've never seen a vampire movie like this. The setting, the time period, the characterization is all a new take on a 100-year-old story type in movies. And it's phenomenal. It's like, this is basically exactly what I'm begging for. This reminds me of like when when Oppenheimer hit. Like, there's a handful of movies over the last few years where I was just like, this is what I'm looking for. Somebody with a really strong take, with an incredible visual sensibility, who knows how to direct actors, who understands the way the music has a relationship to drama, and also just wants to have fun. Like, this movie is really fun. And it's, there's lots of homage to From Dusk Till Dawn and The Thing and movies that we love, that some people who love vampire movies might see this movie and be like, this is like a From Dusk Till Dawn ripoff. But this is like in the lineage of what these kinds of movies do. That movie's 30 years ago.
But it is also like a old school Hollywood musical, like for half of it. And there are like musical set pieces. So, I, the musical nerd, was like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. This is so exciting. I mean, there is something for everyone, including, stakes to the heart.
So, I enjoy movies like this. I really enjoy From Dusk Till Dawn.
I love it. It's a fave of mine.
Rewatchable movies ever, right? And I really enjoy, for as campy and kooky as it is, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, right? Which are two movies where you have people, a ragtag bunch of people, trapped inside of a building with a horde of vampires waiting outside. The most interesting thing about those movies are the vampires themselves are very interesting, right? You have an all-time Billy Zane performance in
Demon Knight.
You guys, I'm telling you.
Your guy, Billy Z.
Rocking, okay? And then you have so much about From Dusk Till Dawn that is memorable. Salma Hayek, Tarantino, Clooney's ascent, the whole deal. But it's always kind of about why are those guys in those situations and how they rise, those characters rise to heroism. Jada Pinkett Smith in the case of in Demon Knight. Now, this movie gives you all of these different elements of a very complicated and untold culture, which is the culture of the Mississippi Delta, right? The music of it, the look of it. A lot of people are going to watch the movie and go, they're two Asian American, they're grocers that exist down there. Is that real? It is. And it's a very interesting piece of it. And then when you get to the vampires, they take over. Now you're full on in a vampire movie.
Yep.
And the backdrop of all of the characters just feeds the reasons why everybody makes a decision. It gives you a lot, but it doesn't waste anything because every single thing that it gives you, where if it's cultural, if it's about the blues, you're thinking they're just packing a bunch of stuff in there to make their movie hit with people who want to see more representation on screen. No, it all matters. It all has something to do with the story.
I think that specificity and authenticity that you were talking about is there. It feels like it is researched and accurate. Also, it's a vampire movie.
Yeah.
And it's a very classical style of film writing and filmmaking. This is a 3-act movie. The first 40 minutes of the movie are entirely setting the scene, letting us understand this world, letting us understand these twin brothers, Smoke and Stack, who they are. They've just come back from Chicago. They are originally from Clarksdale, Mississippi. They're coming home to open this club. And we're learning about what Clarksdale is like this time. We meet these grocers. We see this young cousin of theirs who's a preacher's son, who's an aspiring musician who wants to help them open this club. We see the woman who Stack had been in love with when he left. We see a woman who Preacher Boy will soon fall in love with at the train station. We meet an old blues musician, clearly modeled after like a Sonny Boy Williamson type. Like there's just a lot of detail and specificity that goes into the first 40 minutes of this movie. A lot of times when you watch a movie like this that has that formulaic structure, the first 40 minutes are boring because it just feels like setup. This movie does the great thing that a lot of genre movies do, which is that you don't know anything about the vampire stuff for the first 40 minutes. And in fact, as I was watching it, even though I'd seen the trailer, I forgot it was going to be a vampire movie. I wasn't like, when's a vampire going to come around? Because I was trying to figure out what they were doing with the story. And then 40 minutes in, Jack O'Connell arrives. And the film's energy shifts. And I mean, he's just fantastic in this movie, and we can talk about him. I mean, all the performances are great, but I love what they did with him in particular. And then the next 40 minutes becomes this escalation into that musical that you were talking about, Amanda. And then you get to that end of the second act when something awful happens. And then the final 40 minutes is about survival. This is a very, very classic thing. This has been happening in movies for a very long time. It's not going to be surprising the way the movie is shaped, but how it feels is always so alive. And so like there's a sense of humor about it. There's like a real sexiness to it that I find is so unusual in modern movies now, especially modern movies from quote unquote important filmmakers. Like characters are going down on each other. There's explicit conversation about how to have sex in the movie. You know, there's like literally, turns in the storytelling around a sex scene that felt, kind of like the stuff that we are always like, why isn't it like 1997 anymore?
People also have actual chemistry.
It's like you're watching people on screen that look like they actually want to fuck each other. You know what I mean? And it's a part of the actual story. Even getting down to the way that Jack O'Connell, who is just like really scary and awesome. Like, we're talking about the expression of the blues in here. This movie made me look up Irish jig dancing and songs and whatnot, because they look like they were having fun too out there, going nuts. I was like, which party do I want to be in? When they were out there as vampires, getting it out, and he's dancing around, I'm like, yo, that looks like that's pretty.
To me, that is the, for obvious bias reasons, my favorite example of why Coogler is so great is that the scenes where you see Jack O'Connell, who plays an Irish vampire, is singing and dancing and exploring the Irish folk tradition are so good is because they're just very entertaining. They're fun to watch,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they're this sort of
Yeah.
it's sort of a sequel to an earlier musical sequence. It's sort of the other side of that coin, and it's sort of the light and the darkness, like in any vampire story. But the Irish folk tradition and American black blues is like they're two musical forms that are totally related to each other. They're interconnected. They're both born of impoverished people who
Certainly.
have to use culture to find a way to reckon with
And to tell their
fates,
stories.
and
Yeah.
to tell and to express themselves in the face of really difficult things. I asked Coogler about this. He noted, for example, that his first name is Ryan, which is an Irish name, and that he, in fact, is like this was very much on his mind when he was making the movie. But that's like a heady idea that if you care about that sort of thing and you're into musicology and you're into the origins of American music, which this movie is just filled with, it's a lot of fun. If you don't care about that stuff, it's just Jack O'Connell going
just
off
dancing.
dancing,
Right,
and
yeah.
it's super fun. And I should say, I guess, that we're going to spoil this movie as we have the conversation throughout, because I feel like it's kind of necessary to give it its proper due. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want to hear any more about what we're
Go see
discussing,
the movie
go see the movie.
on
It
the
is-
biggest screen possible.
Yes, it is. If you can see it in IMAX, you should see it. It was shot on film. Coogler has taken great pains to talk about how and why he shot this movie with IMAX cameras in 65 millimeter format. You can see it on 70 millimeters in some places. I got a chance to see it in that way. It was very much worth it on a big screen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the movie itself specifically. So you said this is the best you think Michael B. Jordan has been in a movie, period, you think?
Yeah.
So he's got a tall task
Uh-huh.
because he is playing dual roles,
Mhm.
similar but different brothers. Very Cain and Abel framed, I think, here. There's like the sort of more aggressive leader type.
Talking about Cain and Abel from the Bible or Cain and Abel from No Limit Records? It's Gangstafied. You ever heard that record?
you know that I have.
Gangsta. It's
I was more of a Silk the Shocker guy
Oh,
personally.
yeah!
But yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you. But I was referring to the Bible, but if you want to talk No Limit, we could do that too. Mia X, I was a fan.
Oh, shit. Shout out to Mia X, the baddest Mama Mia.
Were you a big No Limit fan back in the day?
I missed that one.
Yeah, were you a
believe it or
fan of the
not.
tank?
Yeah.
You know, when
Like
he put
Mr.
the helmet
Servo?
on? Yeah.
You fucking with Mr. Servo? You like him?
What do you think of Michael B. Jordan? What do you think about him in general?
No, I had a similar thought to Van that I don't know if it's his best ever, but there was a revelation to me in this movie in which I do think he's quite good. And I don't always think that that's the case. I realized that I think that Michael B. is a great facial and like expression actor.
He's a movie star.
But he can give you visually
That's what I'm
what
saying.
you
He's,
need.
He's Steve McQueen.
Well, but like dialogue.
But that's what
Yes,
I'm saying.
okay.
Like
That's-
he
I
doesn't
don't-
need
that's
to
not the-
talk
That's
to
not the
sell
only.
it.
That's not the only definition of movie star. Is what I'm
You're
saying.
right,
But
but
yes,
he's
his
best
powers
suited.
are
Yes.
are visual expression, and like in Black Panther, he's doing what I would call like an all caps acting style, which is kind of where like a lot of dialogue can go. So this movie uses what he does well, and even uses there are two of him. So you're looking for the visual, like the tiny tells of each character, which are in expressions, like mannerism, physicality, and he can do that. And so I thought it used him really well. And obviously, like, he has presence. He is a movie star. He fills the screen. And when there are two of them, whatever they did digitally, good job. Because then you just have two Michael B. Jordans. So I thought it was great. I agree with Fan.
So the reason why I liked it so much is because obviously, once again, Coogler is intentional with this, right? He's never done a movie without Mike.
Yep.
Mike's in every movie. So he knows him very intimately. Once again, this proves the reason why great directors go back to their guys so many times. They have frequent collaborations because they think in terms of character, of course, first, but they also think in terms of the strengths of the people that they know that can embody these characters. And so when you have Smoke and Stack, one brother that's more of a fast talking type of wink and a nod brother, and this other guy that is very grounded and solemn, and dedicated to protection, and a little bit rougher around the edges. You have two parts of Mike's personality.
Mm-hmm.
You have Michael B. Jordan that we know as the really polished movie star, and then you also have a guy who is a very serious craftsman, a very serious artist, and somebody who cares and puts a lot into roles. gets beefed up for roles, really works at it.
Watches
and so
a lot of anime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
does.
does. I
Talks
don't mean
about
that
it,
in
right?
he took that very seriously. Yeah.
And so Coogler knows that.
Yeah.
And so he gives you the two differing forms of who Mike is, and he gets to fall into both of them and essentially make one character. And so when I watched it, I thought it was the perfect usage of him. That's why, and it sounds so nuts to me, even when I say it, it's almost like the movie to me where he arrived, to where I'm like, oh, this now is proof of concept. For as much work as he's been putting in, this is proof of concept of actually where he is going to go as one of the biggest, maybe the biggest star like of his generation, you know. But and it all comes together and it works because it was such an intentional choice to have this guy play these two characters and the world that was built around him.
I think part of it is just that Michael B is just a grown-up now. We've been living with him since The
Very
Wire,
true.
since he was a teenager, and he's 38 years old now. I'm not sure how old the Smokestack twins are supposed to be, but these are guys who served in World War I, who were in Chicago during the Great Depression and were presumably bootleggers
Working
and
for Al
gangsters.
Capone.
And, quote, working for Al Capone. We don't know if that's actually
That's
true.
yeah.
But the film frames them as these guys who've lived. And they're coming home after having lived. You know, particularly Smoke has lost a son and in part has left Clarksdale because he's lost a son. Yeah, I guess he's married or with Wunmi Masaku's character, Annie. And that has like forced him to flee. Stack, on the other hand, who's like, you're right, the more sort of like enterprising hustler type, has also left, and he's left behind a woman, Mary, played by Haley Steinfeld, who was the daughter of the woman who helped raise them after they lost their father. A lot of this information is communicated like really well. It doesn't feel exposition-y. It feels very natural to the storytelling because you've got this reunion framework of all these characters who haven't seen each other in a long time. So the things that they say to each other feel like they need to be communicated. It's very good writing in this movie that like makes, I think, the performance of somebody like Michael B, who to me sometimes can be limited as a performer, but I always like him in Ryan's movies because he understands like where he excels.
Yeah.
He can do hardened alpha leader type. He can do like slick, cool guy if he wants. He can do guy who's got like is almost obsessed with his own ideas. I feel like both Adonis and Killmonger are like kind of consumed by their own idea of the world. And Smoke is the same way. Smoke is like, we have to do this. We have to make this project. The project, I was wondering how you guys felt about this in the movie because the movie presents it as in two ways. Are they starting Club Juke because it's a get-rich-quick scheme? Are they starting it because it's like a way to give back to the community and plant roots? Is it both? Is it neither? What is the purpose of them buying this killing floor from this KKK leader and trying to build up this place?
Good question.
You want me to take it?
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason for them to come back to Mississippi. That's key in understanding.
Well, unless they are on the run because they stole everything. They stole the Italian wine and they stole the Irish beer. So they played both sides and now they got to get out of town.
Los Angeles, New York,
Okay.
all of that. When you are electing to come back to Mississippi, they talk a little bit about it in the movie. You're reinserting yourself to being at the bottom of the social order, which they found out was kind of the same in Chicago, but they're choosing familiarity to come back down to Mississippi and to reinsert themselves into the life that they left for some reason, right? He talks about the fact that he went to a different town of freed slaves and he understood what it was like there. He's been to Chicago, been all around the world, but they come back there. The club is them setting down roots. For whatever reason, they've seen all the other evils of the world, the evils of the war, the evils of a certain liberalized metropolitan brand of American racism, the evil of black freedmen in a town that didn't accept them. And they're choosing the devil they know. And so they're going to be there for a while. And what actually they realize is that there is a completely different devil that they have never met before.
This is the not so subterranean idea of the movie that I love and that I think is played really well. Jack O'Connell is a vampire, presumably hundreds of years old. He's from Ireland. He's somehow made it to America, and he is attempting to grow his flock. He's killing people in an attempt to escape the Choctaw Indians that are, trailing him throughout Mississippi.
Could have used more of them.
I agree. I got the impression Coogler was very interested in them too, and maybe just didn't build the movie out around that. Maybe it's Sinners too.
Yeah.
Anyhow, O'Connell's character, you're going to laugh at me, but you're not, reminded me a little bit of Thanos, because there is a little bit of, are we sure he's wrong about this character in this movie?
Yeah.
Because the whole movie is about temptation and the other side, the allure of living on the other side of the law, the allure of living in another city that is different from yours, the allure of another race, the allure of another kind of music, another kind of culture. Is the grass greener if you go over here? Is the grass greener in vampiric immortality? And the movie makes a really strong case for vampiric immortality all the way up until the post-credit sequence, which is extremely alluring.
They look like they having a good time to me.
Yes.
They can't go outside during the day, but they look like they chilling.
But you're also placing the movie in the context of the Black church, gospel, faith and spirituality. There's an underpinning of Christianity that runs through some of Coogler's films. There's a lot of messianic imagery in all of his movies. This is deep stuff.
Yeah.
Using a vampire story to tell it. And I came out of the movie a second time, loved seeing it a second time, it worked even better, feeling like this vampire, he's got some points. He's got some points. I don't know.
Well, the title of the movie is Sinners, right? And it seems to be litigated with every character, like how much sin is enough for you. Like how much sin are you willing to completely become a vampire to be beautiful forever? But there was even still mortality with the vampire, because I swore that they were going to kill Preacher Boy, but then they go, nah, I told him I would let him live. And I still love my brother. I'm a vampire, but I still love my brother enough to like keep his promise. So I'm like, maybe he's not that bad, because he's kind of more, because that's Stack, right? That's Smokes.
That's Stack, yeah, who lives, yeah.
That's Stack. So he's kind of more Stack as a vampire than he even was as a human being, because he's carefree. It didn't seem like he thought things out. Well, now he doesn't have much to worry about, right? Besides the sun, and maybe if there's some kind of Abraham Van Helsing in this universe somewhere, maybe that guy, the Choctaw Indians, are going to come back. But Preacher Boy falls in love with Perline. She's cheating on her husband. Like one of the guys in the movie, Delrolindo's character, who does the most heroic thing in the movie, is a drunk and a violent and all of those things.
Yeah.
So when you start litigating everybody's morality in the movie, it kind of comes back to a central idea of like, what's your version of worse? Like, what's your version of bad?
And the twins, the Michael B. Jordan characters, also ultimately like their ends carry that out as well, right?
Yeah.
Of like what what would you pick? Who are the real sinners? Like what is the real sin? Like what is the devil? What is the lesser of the two evils? Like and some of it is exploring, I guess, probably the different two sides of each of us. Like which way would you go? Because the twin is like one person divided.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the movie. I mean, we're fully spoiling it, right?
Yeah.
So one person becomes one twin becomes a vampire, and the other person is dead, but also gets to be reunited with his wife and child.
Yeah.
So
incredible scene.
Incredible scene. And
he falls
also,
to the ground and shoots up the KKK leader, and he sees the vision of Annie.
Yeah,
Amazing.
and that's also, that's another thing where it's like you've finished the movie. Like the climactic nighttime scene is the humans against the vampires at night, but then it's like, oh wait, there are other daytime vampires, right? That come back. And so we have to like one person, you get your nighttime vampire shootout, and there's a twin, there's a duel for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But so his actual death is not played at all like a death. It is played, I mean, he dies, but
it's a release.
Yeah.
It's a release.
Yeah, he gets salvation.
It's happy. He gets salvation. It's a happier life. So in both cases, the Jack O'Connell character is right, and it's like, well, this is definitely better than your current life. And then the movie portrays the other option, which is just dying, as like definitely better than your current life, which is sort of, I mean, you know, it's the thesis of the movie is basically that just like staying the participation in the everyday is actually is the worst case outcome.
Well, there's one other like critical element of this that kind of splits the difference between this duality idea. The movie set in Clarksdale in 1932. In 1932, Robert Johnson, famed blues musician, goes to Clarksdale. It's the last year before he decides to become a traveling musician, go down to the crossroads, meet the devil, be granted his incredible musical powers, and then basically change music, change American music, change all music.
Ralph Macchio.
Change Ralph Macchio and Walter Hill's incredible film Crossroads, which is a film about a white kid from Long Island who quote unquote meets Robert Johnson and is touched by the blues gods.
You guys never saw that movie. That movie's good.
Crossroads is very good. Thank you for acknowledging it.
Right.
It would be a great movie to watch in a double feature with Sinners.
Right.
Anyhow, the point is, obviously, this is not a mistake that this movie is set in that year. This is not a mistake that Robert Johnson, who bears a passing resemblance to Preacher Boy, who then becomes, we find out later, basically Buddy Guy, who moves to Chicago, one of the innovators of Chicago electric blues. All of these kind of intersections, I think, are showing you that like you kind of need to confront evil before you can transcend and become something bigger and better. And that maybe you can become Buddy Guy, or maybe you can become Preacher Boy, or maybe you can become Robert Johnson, but that you need the dark to have the light. Doesn't mean the dark goes away, but it means that you can kind of confront it and go forward. I think that's ultimately the big takeaway of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the very brief. By the way, no one told me there was a post-credit sequence. So
you missed it.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Oh my God.
Well, listen, it's not a
very
Marvel
fun.
movie, okay? I was trying to respect Ryan Coogler, okay? He's freed from Marvel.
No, but this is, I'm glad this happened to you.
Oh, so thanks.
I'm glad this happened to you because this happened to you because of your rebuke of the Marvel movies.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Pay your penance.
And since you rebuked them, you missed a great part of the movie.
It is very cool.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I thought it was going to be really silly and on. So here's what happens.
Someone told you to stay? Well, like,
literally, I was told to stay.
But throughout the credits, though, they're showing you him play.
They cut to Buddy Guy.
Yeah.
Which is meant to be Preacher Boy. He's got the scar on his face that he gets
I
at the end
got
of the film.
that. I saw that.
At Perline's.
That's right, at Perline.
And then I was like, cool. Like, good movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to drive home now.
Perline also, by the way, a Sun House song. So that's where that character's name comes from. In the post-credit sequence, Stack and Mary show up in 1992 in the back bar of a club where Preacher Boy has just played, where Sammy has just played. And he's now in his late 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And incredible Coogee sweater and like
whole
hardcore 1992 hip hop outfit.
The big door knockers on.
Yeah, door knockers.
Okay, but
they look like they've just walked off the set of In Living Color. They look amazing.
Incredible, but they haven't aged because they're vampires.
They haven't aged.
Well,
yes, they're vampires.
Listen, I'm here with you. I'm learning, and we're learning and growing together.
It's a funny thing, though. Not that Marvel invented the post-credit sequence or whatever. It had been done before.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
But I like the idea of Coogler taking a little piece of that and putting it in this movie, because in this, he basically, Stack sits down next to Sammy and he asks him, he tells him that my brother told me that he would let me live if I didn't fuck with you, if I let you live. But you're now at the end, you've lived a good life. Would you want to turn and be a vampire? You can keep playing music forever. You can make some money. You can live the life you want to live and be celebrated. And he says, you know what? I'm good. No, thank you. And then Stack sort of reflects for a minute and says, I like what you're doing here, but I miss the real. And then we flash back to Sammy as a young kid playing the acoustic guitar and that slide guitar in the car when he has this great moment of reverie when he's singing Traveling. And Buddy Guy breaks out the acoustic guitar and he just plays for them. And very amusing, Haley Steinfeld just being like, oh, damn, I do love the blues kind of moment from her. Really appreciate her white girl efforts for all of us.
She's not as white as we thought, apparently.
At least not according to this film.
According to her. She said that she was, you didn't see this?
No.
Yeah, that this is.
She's descended from?
I think in the whatever descent that they use in the film is what?
Is accurate.
She said that she got some black and Filipino.
Well, God bless. That's great. In this film, she's 1/8?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Her father's mother was black? Her mother's father?
Her mother's father was black.
Was half black.
Was half black, yeah.
I'm just looking at the quotes, and according to Wikipedia, that's also what she's sighting in real life.
That's dope.
I haven't
She has
seen,
a tremendous amount of swag, and I wish her all the best.
Yeah. Not to be like the white girl being like,
you like it.
But she was very good. I didn't know she had that.
There's some lines in there. Hey, Haley, was stirring up.
Turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, no.
I'll turn it up.
Yeah, no, I was fucking with it.
She's given some of the raciest dialogue in the movie.
Yeah, she's going for it, and like this all grown it up.
The post-credit sequence is fun.
It is fun.
I'm sorry I missed it.
And it's fun, and it also kind of like it's meaningful too, because when they're listening to him play, they start to reflect a little bit.
Yes.
They've lived for a long time. They're never gonna get any older.
Never see the sun.
They're never gonna see the sun. He says, "This is the last time I saw the sun." They're not ever gonna be human again. But you wonder with vampires, do you miss your humanity? So when they're sitting there talking, they offer him, eternity. He says no, and then they reflect a little bit about how they were once what he is. And then they leave without massacring the whole bar, which I thought that they maybe might do. And so they're out of there. So it was kind of a way to let us know that the central tenets of the story still exist, even though the characters don't anymore. And just to go back to that, I think the term sinners, because, we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. I think the term sinners just means this movie is just about people.
Mm-hmm.
Because unlike Marvel movies, good doesn't win in the end. Evil doesn't lose. Life just goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Every character has a different sort of fate that they meet. There's the forever fate. There's the fate of the human. There's the fate of death. Every character shows a tremendous amount of frailty, but it doesn't button itself up in a way where you think everything's going to be okay. It doesn't button itself up in a way where you think everything's going to be terrible. We live in a really complicated world with a lot of complicated people who, if you put them in an extraordinary situation, might do some things that are heroic or some things that are monumentally stupid, but they're like just people living through this thing. Even Preacher Boy's backstory with his dad and how his dad views religion. You would have thought that Preacher Boy would have been like, I've seen the devil, so let me run to the church. Not what he does. I've seen the devil. I'm not going to be here forever. Let me go live out my days in the way that is the most meaningful to me. Let me do the thing that they're telling me not to do. He still rejects God, basically, after he's seen Satan, because he chooses himself. Very, very interesting choices all around. Interesting movie from that perspective to me.
Let's talk a little bit more about Preacher Boy, because he's portrayed by Miles Caton, who I'd never seen before, who is phenomenal. Here's what I wrote down. He looks like a young Derek Luke and has the voice of a young Shine Poe.
Oh, wow. Shout out to Shine. President of Belize.
It's a huge episode for 90s rap so far.
Yeah.
He's very, very good in this movie. He has a tricky role because he's opposite some very experienced heavyweight movie stars. Right. He's opposite Coogler twice. He's opposite Haley Steinfeld. He's opposite Delroy Lindo. Like, he's really confronted by some...
And he's like the framework of the movie and also sort of like the audience stand-in.
Exactly. He's kind of our surrogate.
First character we see.
Yes. And his music and his desire to make music and his struggles with God and struggles with the church is at the center of the story. Now, he is the agent of change in what I'll describe as what will be the most controversial scene in the movie, which is a scene that I love, but I think will be a big talking point coming out of this.
This is so funny because the day I went to see it, before I went, you guys were talking about this, and you were not using specific nouns. You were speaking in abstract, but you were clearly signaling to each other about some big scene and really controversial.
Van asked me, what did you think of that scene?
Yeah. And then you guys were talking about it, and you said you really bought into it, and Van, you were like, some people were not going
I liked it, but some people that left the screening were like, it was too much.
Yeah. So I spent the whole screening being like, okay, so when is the really fucked up thing going to happen?
Oh, you thought it was going to be a fucked up thing?
That's the way that you guys were describing it. I was sitting there, all right, like, what's the scene? What's the scene? And it didn't occur to me until the very end of the movie that was the scene.
It's more so that it is an audacious moment in the movie.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, this is a movie that has vampires and supernatural elements, so audacity in storytelling is kind of a given. But what is portrayed in this one scene that we're talking about, which is the centerpiece of the second act, is Preacher Boy gets on stage to finally play his music at Club Juke, and he starts playing the blues, and it very quickly transforms into this very acrobatic camera moving through the club as the people are dancing. And as they are dancing, we are basically seeing the evolution of music both 100 years ago in both Africa and China, and performance style and musical style, and also into the future, into funk and into hip hop and everything in between. And it is
Twerking too.
Twerking.
Don't ignore that thick shit, Sean.
There's Bay Area stuff
Yeah.
in there for sure. Like you can hear all the different textures of music that he's playing with. It's a crazy sound mixing in that sequence. But it is, for lack of a better word, weird. It's completely out of the context of the narrative of the movie. It is a like almost like a psychotronic, like hallucinogenic kind of feeling. Now, if you love music and you're interested into the history of music, as I at least was once upon a time, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. This is so cool that the phrase that he used to me was using the power of cinema language. Like, you can only do this in a movie. You can only say, here's how all of these things, not just African and Black music, but Chinese music and American rock and roll and all these other things are all related to each other. They're part of a lineage, a cultural lineage, a sonic lineage, and people having a good time and getting something off of their chest with music is a fundamental human experience. I loved it. I felt like I got it immediately. But it is a bold choice.
I did have a moment when it concluded of being like, did I miss something narratively? Because it is at a point in the movie where you're still doing a lot of exposition. And so I was like, okay, I mean, listen, I love a dream ballet, and that's what it was to me. Like, it's a very recognizable part of a Hollywood musical.
Absolutely.
And an expression of like the joy of cinema, color, music, movement. Like I was totally into it, but then I was like, my only hesitation was, do I not understand everything that's going on? But I, Amanda,
has this
am
transcended in another world or something?
No, but it's just, there's still a point where he is putting out the movie is building, okay, here are the stakes, not literally, pun, not intended, but like intended,
Yeah.
And I know like my vampire stuff, like I knew, how do I know that they have to be invited in? I don't know that.
It assumes that you know.
It assumes that you know.
Yeah.
That's critical to the story.
It assumes that you know.
And I did know that, but I couldn't tell you where I learned that. So I think that I was always trying to make sure that I had all of my lore and the basic framework of the movie set down. And for one moment, I was like, okay, is the shack really on fire or is it not? But then I just got back into it and I was rocking and it was okay. And I thought it was really cool.
So this is the thing. I loved it. Loved it. To her point, I was wondering, and the one thing that I do feel like the movie doesn't really explain is we're told that Preacher Boy's music is so special that it can thin out dimensions or bring people from another place or whatever. And this is why the head vampire is so interested in him.
It's a siren song to this vampire, yes. That will bring him back to his ancestors. Yes.
Right. That's underplayed, first of all. That idea.
That detail, yeah.
That detail is underplayed. That scene, I thought, was going to connect us to that. It's demonstrating that, but not in a way that is more meaningful than what the scene does visually. The scene doing that visually shows us the power of music, right? It shows us the connectivity across different eras of culture and humanity through sound. Like a sonic prayer session, like throughout the years. Awesome. It was great. But for about 5 minutes after, maybe even 10, I was wondering, well, does Preacher Boy have special powers? Like, did that really happen? Did that happen for us? Or did that happen there? Like, is Preacher Boy going to be able to play the guitar and then two dudes from Oakland going to come out with AK-47s and kill all the vampires? You know what I mean?
It's an interesting idea.
Right.
Yeah.
I was wondering if
I didn't think of it that way, but sure,
if Preacher Boy had the ability to, like, Kincaid from Nightmare on Elm Street. Remember No, it wasn't Kincaid. It was Alice. She could call other people into her dreams, and that was her dream power. You guys, I'm sorry, I apologize, but
I
like,
just remembered that I had a dream last night that I was supposed to interview Anne Hathaway and I didn't bring my tape recorder and it was really stressful. Sorry, and I meant to tell you about it. Continue.
Why was I not there?
I don't know. Isn't that really weird? I was like,
See what I'm
it's
saying?
really, speaking of like calling people into your dreams. Okay.
so she would be like, Kincaid, Joey, and then they would show up in her dream and help her fight Freddy.
Yeah.
So it's like, can he do that?
Mhm.
And so, but after I was like, oh, they was just getting their shit off. I was like, okay.
You know what I thought? I'll tell you how I read it
Okay.
specifically and why it doesn't do that. And I'm glad it didn't do that, even though it is still a vampire movie. This is expressed in the post-credit sequence that Amanda missed. But when you're sitting close to someone that has a talent, especially a musical talent, and they start showing you their musical talent up close, it feels supernatural.
It's nuts.
It's like,
Yeah.
especially me as someone who does not have any musical talent, when someone plays the guitar in front of me, or even when someone's DJing in front of me, that's a great example. I'm like, what is this fucking warlock doing?
Yeah.
You know, the sense of time, the sense of rhythm, the sense of connectivity across music. Like, there is something about it that it seemed clear to me that Coogler was like, Preacher Boy has something that like 1 out of every 20 million people have.
I see.
And
those people in that scene are the people that have that.
yes,
Right.
exactly. They are manifestations of the past and the future. You see the, Parliament Funkadelic style guitarist. Like that's something, Bootsy Collins had it, something like that. And I like that idea. And that idea is made manifest at the end because we see that he had a 70-year-long career as a beloved and celebrated musician. So he actually was the real deal. It would have been interesting if it went like one tick further into this is all connected to the story. But I think just instead the sort of like siren song to the devil made sense to me.
I don't think it needs to though. Ultimately, I'm with Sean that it's a cool thing that I really liked.
Agree as well.
I also think that a thing I really like about the movie is that for all its, dream music sequences and characterization and specificity, it does all that within a recognizable 3-act framework and uses enough stuff that you do know. So it doesn't matter if you and I were confused for 5 minutes because then the rest of the story is built there and we can just latch back on and we know where it's going. And it uses that to its advantage to just then be able to do wild, cool stuff.
The movie was able to elicit your surrender, which it's like, what did George Clooney say that time? George Clooney says you sit down and you make a deal with the movie, and the minute that the movie breaks the deal, you're like, I'm out. Like, you know what I mean? What you're saying on the screen is true and whatever. By that point, the movie you'd already surrendered to the movie.
100%.
Yeah.
So to me, I was going to be in no matter what. I'm very interested in movies like this. I'm very interested in music and the history of music. But there's a great moment at the end of the first act after Jack O'Connell's character has sort of invaded this family's home. By the way, Lola Kirk in that scene. I love Lola Kirk. She's wonderful. She has a great scream at the end of that scene. But as soon as that scene happens and right before Club Juke opens and we cut to that, there's like a doom metal musical cue and we get a hard shot of a full moon. And it's the most like you're in a fucking vampire movie moment. You know, like you didn't know you were in a vampire movie until now, but you are. And I was looking at the official Sinners playlist on Spotify for this movie, and it's a lot of what you might expect. It's a lot of Delta blues, it's a lot of Son House and Sonny Boy Williamson, and you hear Pick a Poor Robin Clean, which is sung in the song. And then there's like some Zach Bryan in there, and then there's the Dubliners and some Irish folk music. And then there's a little stretch where it goes Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Metallica. In the official playlist.
Yeah.
And then all the way at the end, there's a Young Dolph song.
Right.
And I'm like, this is why Coogler is the best, that he sees these intersections of, in vampire movies, there is a fucking metal aspect to these movies that you kind of have to represent to really fulfill it. It's not overdoing it. There was no guy playing metal in the Blues Club, but it is a quality of these movies, and he gets it. He's willing to put it on screen.
It's time for Race Eyes.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. Race Eyes.
Hi.
Okay.
Is this a character or just a tool that you have?
It's me looking at things through the lens of race.
Okay.
It's time for Race Eyes. If you guys are watching, you see the Race Eyes are coming up. Ryan Coogler is able to do something that's really, really fascinating to me. He's able to portray Black characters as people. That sounds stupid. I know it does. when I say black characters, I mean fundamentally and very deeply black characters. He's able to play them as people that are in a story. It's hard to do. It's hard to do because there's so much that sometimes black creatives and artists want to express. And so much of it has to do with our condition, the uniqueness of it, and the specificity of the black experience in America, right? This movie has all of that. But as we're watching it, we're watching them as people and not as black people. They are black people.
Mm-hmm.
I am a black person.
Mm-hmm.
My mother is a black person. My father is a black person. I am insanely proud. Wouldn't have it any other way. Love my culture so much. Like worship my ancestors, right? But sometimes I just do stuff. And then stuff just happens to me. And sometimes it doesn't have very much to do with anything other than me being Van, right? Now, me being Van is incredibly informed by where I'm from, by the sacrifices of the people that came before me. And if you guys don't know that by now, by listening to me, then you haven't been listening to me.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is something beautiful about being able to tell a story that is this distinctly black and is also broad because it taps into themes that are so unifying as human beings that you forget that you're in the Mississippi Delta. You forget that you're in these different places. You're watching a story about people.
Yeah.
And there's so many black performers and they say it in weird, crude ways sometimes. Like, I don't want to be in a black movie. And then we go, we don't want to hear you say that. We don't want to hear you say you don't want to be in a black movie. Or I don't want to play a black character. I just want to play a character. We know what you mean, but it's grating to hear because so much of our power is in our identity. But he's able to do it. And in this movie, he does it. It's a very distinctly black film about black culture with black music that I don't feel like one person will be alienated from.
I also don't think it will be described as a black movie, even though 90% of its cast is black. I think it's the same reason that whether it's Martin Scorsese and Italian-American Identity and the Mafia and Faith versus Violence, or Celine Sciamma and being a woman from France and interested in queer stories, or Wong Kar-wai and being Asian and looking at the idea of like yearning versus what is natural. Sean Baker being somebody who's interested in people that are very different from him.
Yeah.
It's basically just any good filmmaker that has really core ideas. Like Coogler has already done this in Black Panther. It's a story about nationalism versus isolationism.
It's a tension in the diaspora.
Right. In Creed, it's about male identity, vulnerability. It's about finding purpose. In this movie, it's about faith versus making your own luck. It's about that duality that we're talking about. But also, these are all fun movies to watch. You don't need to have had the exact same experience of the people. You better understand the experience of the people by enjoying the movie. So, I mean, I think it's interesting because he is pretty clearly the most commercially successful black filmmaker ever. Like, he's like so far ahead because of the success of Creed and Black Panther. There's never really been anyone like him in American movies.
Do not shy away from race
at all. They're about it.
Yeah.
But they're not about it at the same time. Like, there are so many things in Creed that are just like, this is what it's like feeling stuck at this stage of your life. This is what it's like having a complicated relationship with your father and his legacy. This is what it's like not knowing how to be a dad in Creed 3. Like, there's all this stuff in these movies. It's just human stuff.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I really like that he's like, also it's a vampire movie with a doom metal music cue and there's some Irish dancing in it. Like,
and it is both those things.
Yes.
And that is true. Like, you know, Black Panther is about like the diaspora and nationalism. And it is also like a superhero movie where, you know, they like all battle at the end, right?
Yeah.
And the other
there's a magical medal.
Like, exactly. Like it has, I remember, you know, sure. It
you
seems
love
great.
vibranium.
Yeah, vibranium. What's the one in the new
adamantium?
Thank you so much. Yeah.
They found that in the Celestial.
Okay, and that one's, you know, more like that's
an unbreakable metal that Wolverine has binded to his skeleton.
That's right. Because Chris leaned over me and said, "That's what Wolverine's claws are made of." Yeah.
And soon his skeleton.
But it's like it's not even that he's like he doesn't have to pick and choose between the two of them. What? The
It's just
claws?
no. It's just yeah.
Yeah.
When you say it out loud, it's
A
hysterical.
little silly. Yeah. It's a little silly.
I get mocked for leaving before the credits.
No, it's not your fault.
I get mocked for saying it out loud. Oh, when I hear it.
Just in general, the fact that we have
Sure.
devoted a lot of our time and
Yeah.
life
We
to being like,
we started this when we were 9.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's core lore.
yeah.
But when you say it outside, it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say it out loud,
Right.
it's funny.
When you say it, it feels different,
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
which is not an insult to you. It's in fact a compliment to you.
okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you so much. Anyway, despite vibranium, which I guess is cooler than adamantium, like I liked that movie, and it was both. It was pure superhero and also like pure ideas.
Yeah.
Same with Creed. Like that is a movie that just like made me weep because it hit that music, cue right as he like hits someone in the it is like pure
Sports movie.
sports genre pleasure and also big ideas. And I really Coogler has a unique gift to not to make them one thing, as you're saying, Van. Like it's awesome.
It's just interesting that he wrote this movie. And it's interesting that this is a movie that he wrote and came up with, and it's completely out of his head. It's just interesting that this isn't somebody else's take on it, because he was very smart to do something in his career, in my opinion. So Fruitvale Station comes out, great movie, proof of concept that this guy's a good director. Creed is kind of a cheat code. It's a cheat code because it's
He gets to leverage some of the coolest lore in movie history.
Yeah.
movie history, right? Then Black Panther, the movie is better than anybody could have imagined that it was going to be in the hands of Ryan Coogler. And we go, wow, this guy can really handle this. But at this point, he's doing stuff that we're familiar with, right? And comes back with Wakanda Forever.
Mixed.
Divisive movie, I loved it, but divisive movie. Then by the time we get to this one, this is totally out of his brain, right?
Mhm.
And it's so specific. It's specifically blues and horror and all of this stuff, and he came up with it. What I'm trying to say is that, like, I wouldn't have thought that his first original film would have been this. I wouldn't have thought that it would have been this. I wouldn't have thought that it would have been something that the degree of difficulty is so high on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's obviously really, really in love with genre. If you've read any of the interviews that he's given on this round, he's talked a lot about John Carpenter and Robert Rodriguez and a lot of classical horror that he really likes. So it's great to hear that as somebody who's kind of obsessed with that stuff, but I'm not terribly surprised because he's so clearly understood the mechanics of superhero storytelling and of sports movies.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Right.
reasons why those movies are in the kind of upper echelon, especially this century, of those kinds of movies. It is a big challenge. I think there's an important part of this story that is outside of the text but related to the text, which is that it's been reported quite a bit that he negotiated after he wrote the script. He sent it to the studios and he said, highest bidder, whoever will pay me the most money for this movie. And in the negotiation, he was able to leverage that after 25 years, the copyright of the film returns to his ownership,
Yeah.
which is incredibly unusual. We know that this is something Quentin Tarantino did for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Very few filmmakers in the history of studio filmmaking have been able to get this. Now, he's been a little bit circumspect in the press as to why he wanted that, but I'll just make a conclusive leap that a movie about blues, which is an art form that was adopted, transformed,
Yeah.
and stolen in
Yeah.
America and turned into white profit, making a movie that is essentially about the origins of that and the way that is like there is a temptation and there is like a desire to transgress, but that transgression can be a beautiful art. And then owning that after making that movie, I'm sure is very metaphorically and financially rewarding for him. He has said that he's not going to be asking for this on future movies, that this is a one-shot deal. We'll see if that's true. I remember last year, I was at CinemaCon and talking to people about this, which is around the time when that news broke that Warner Brothers had agreed to give him the copyright back after 25 years. And they were like, yeah, not a big deal, one-off deal. If I was somebody like Coogler, and there are not a lot of them, but if I was a young filmmaker who had a lot of promise, I would push for this every time. This will break movie studios,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it is the next step in artistic ownership in this kind of way, and it can only happen in an original story. It can't be based on a classic novel. It can't be based on a superhero, pre-existing IP. You can't own that. Somebody else owns that. This is his thing.
Mhm.
He invented it. And people liked the script so much and they saw so much promise in this movie that went from probably being like a $50 million movie to like a $90 or $100 million movie with a reversion of copyright. So it's a huge gamble for Warner Brothers. That leads me to my question, which is like, do you guys think this movie is going to be a big hit? Do you think people are going to go see it?
I don't think it's going to be a Minecraft movie. I'm sorry to say.
Minecraft movie.
Yeah.
Did you see that yet?
I have not,
I'm surprised to hear that.
but I saw people going nuts about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including this guy.
I wouldn't say I went nuts about it, but I
Yeah.
did see it in a movie theater with people who were going nuts.
I saw my good friend Diallo Riddle. Shout out to Diallo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Diallo.
I
So I saw Diallo when everybody was at City Walk to see Sinners, and I thought that Diallo was there to see Sinners, and he goes, "Now I'm here with my kids seeing the Minecraft movie," and I just laughed because everybody's seeing it. It's interesting. Everybody who I know is going to see this movie. Everyone's talking about it. People are very excited.
Yep.
I am a nerd enough to follow tracking. Like I'm
Yeah.
hand-wringing over the tracking for Thunderbolts. We need one, guys. And so
We're going to find out.
like we need
It's
one.
10 days. We're going to find out.
We
You
need
going
one.
in Burbank?
Yeah, no. I'm going to the Grove.
Oh,
Yeah, the Grove.
okay.
Sad for you.
That's sad.
Yeah,
Just come sit next to me.
the Burbank is it's a little bit of height, guys.
Not for me.
So, but R-rated vampire movie still has, you have to set expectations in terms of what a hit is.
Let me zag on your point because I think that is the conventional historical point of view.
All right.
Horror is one of the most underrated in terms of tracking.
Yeah.
And as you know better than anybody, Black audiences are always underrated when it comes to movies like this.
We going to see Sinners.
Yes. This is the same thing that happened with Black Panther, where everybody was like, this should be a double for Marvel. And it's now one of the biggest and most important Marvel movies of all time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I choose to be optimistic. And
Give me a number. Give me a number. Give me a number first week because I was
I think it's tracking like 40.
It can't, it's no fucking way, bro. It's going to make more money than that.
It is. I agree.
I think it's going to make like 52 million.
Okay. So 52 million is a win?
I think so.
Okay. Now let me
This
tell
is
you
an original story.
But let me tell you why I'm asking. It's because we think with Marvel brain a lot of times when we think about this. So we're thinking, does Sinners get to $600 million? Does Sinners, you know what I mean? But for this, we're talking about a
No, I can't get that. That would be, I mean, if that happens, phenomenal. Like that's
Right.
amazing.
Right. So I guess when we say, are people going to see it? I guess I'm trying to set a standard to what would be a win.
Long
opening
term on the
weekend,
box
long term
office?
On the box office for the movie. $90 million budget. And then you got to think about the marketing. Like, what's a win? The movie people.
150.
Really?
I think 150 would be a huge win.
Okay.
like overall, domestic.
I don't know what international is. The one thing that historically is Black stories don't travel that well. Like
Yeah.
it's just a fact.
Yeah.
Like internationally, they just don't
people
play that
want to
well.
see them. It's been a big thing when you talk about how you get a hit overseas.
It's the inversion of the underestimating the Black audiences in America.
Yeah.
Overseas, one of the reasons why these movies are not marketed in the same way internationally is they feel like it's going to underperform. Yeah.
Yeah.
So total, God, I don't. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I feel like it can do 50, which I think is a win for an original horror movie in the middle of April. I think would be a great success. You could make the case that a movie like this shouldn't cost $90 million. That's what some people will say. I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's not your money.
It's not going to be our money. One of the reasons why it would be great if it got into that $200 million range is not only would there be financial success, I think he's also getting first dollar gross, which is like Tom Cruise territory. Like he's in rare territory in terms of negotiating. Not only great for Coogler and his team, it's great for movies like this getting greenlit. It's great for movies like this being possible.
Y'all need this bad.
Badly.
It's like so.
It's really
we are
important.
desperate.
It's really important.
Like it really.
Right.
But
That's why I was like, yeah. Ideas, rich text, whatever. This is a vampire movie. Like, please go see this movie in theaters. So they were like, we can all keep talking about shit like this.
The other thing is we've had these all these hand-wringing conversations about Warner Brothers over the last couple of years, and everybody's demonizing David Zaslav, recently featured in New York Magazine in a long profile this week. Set all that aside, Mike DeLuca, who runs Warner Brothers, like works with good filmmakers and lets them make cool movies. Like this is a cool movie.
Yeah.
You know, One Battle After Another sounds like it's going to be a cool movie. Like he takes risks with original stories. That's his whole thing. He's been doing it since New Line. I don't want him to get fired. People who want Mike DeLuca to get fired don't love movies. That's fucking crazy. If you like studio movies,
most of the people who talk about tracking and
I
box
know.
office and everything don't love movies.
But I'm the sort of person who actually looks at tracking and cares about box office performance, but cares about the quality of the movie first. So to me, the premise of the show is the interconnected nature of, is your movie good and how well did it do so we can get another one? So this to me is such a perfect test case for that big question. I would implore people to go see it. I liked what you said at the very top of the conversation, though. This is not a perfect movie. Genre movies, by their very nature, are complicated. They're hard to make them make sense.
Yeah.
We've been rapturous for an hour while discussing the movie. You're probably going to see it and take quibble with some
Can
things.
I ask a question related to this? Okay, so all the vampires that are, outside for sunset and thus are lit on fire at the end of the movie, but they come back. The fire doesn't kill them?
No, none of them come back.
Oh, those.
They die.
So,
They
I
die.
thought that
Only
Haley
2
Steinfeld
survived.
was in
They
that.
ran away.
They ran away.
It shows
They survived.
Okay. All right, thank
That
you.
was
I was wondering if they were hiding
Yeah.
in the club.
They might have been.
And then even when Smoke gets killed at the end, they're still hiding in the club, but they can't come outside and help him.
They can't. They're watching them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they ran.
Okay.
They were able to get away.
All right.
They're in love.
So, but yeah, that's
beautiful.
and
Very
lust,
beautiful.
and that's
lust.
great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Interracial.
Well,
I
mean, yes and no.
Yes and no.
I would watch like their Twilight.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess like
there is definitely a
post-Twilight.
sequel
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
could do if this movie is a massive success, which I would watch.
Yeah.
I would watch it. I think a sequel set in contemporary times would be dope.
What if it was 1970s like Shaft style
that would be
blaxploitation
fucking
movie with
amazing,
vampires?
That'd be great.
That would be amazing too. The only thing is, I want now to. I don't know how you orient the sequel. Is it, if it's around them? Are they the heroes? Are they the bad? Same thing
Good
with
question.
the other movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we know they survived too.
We know they
Oh,
survived. so
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
it
wanna
can't be a
see it-
Bonnie and Clyde
Yeah.
type thing.
Right.
yeah.
Well,
Present day would be the way to do it
yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Or immediately after the events in the post-credit sequence
Right.
that
And
Amanda
then you
skipped.
could
Yeah.
play the post-credit sequence at the beginning so I could see it.
I thought about you guys when I
like
watched.
to see Buddy Guy play. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah,
it was
that's
cool.
Yeah. I thought about you guys when I watched this movie recently, as we talk about original films. Did you guys talk about Companion on here?
We
We
did.
sure did. We really
We did.
liked
We
it.
liked
And
it.
we responded to your text.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked
It's a
it.
great movie.
So
Also, Warner Brothers.
So here's the thing. When I saw Companion, I thought about myself 1992.
Mhm.
I thought about myself 1992 watching a movie that I love and will watch 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Wishing
10.
you had a sex robot.
The whole thing. There were movies like that back in the day.
There were.
Yeah. So, but the movie to me, which has an awesome script, which has a good villain turn from Jack Quaid.
He's great.
What the
Yeah.
shit?
Yeah.
I felt like it came and went, and people didn't really support it.
We did talk about it a couple times. I had Drew Hancock, the writer-director on the show.
Mhm.
Super smart, nice guy. It won a January movie, so not a lot of fuss made over it. I think they also moved it to streaming very quickly. I imagine it did pretty well on streaming, or on PVOD, I should say. But it did okay business. I use this as an example of like movies are fucked up now because that movie should be in movie theaters for 2 months.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was out of movie theaters real quick.
It just to me, all the bones of a good movie. And I just wonder, as much as we talk about this, I'm not gonna go on my old man yells at cloud / the moon thing. Do you guys just like good movies? Because it's a movie with a very inventive script that gives you a surprise every 10 minutes, great performances, cool people to look at,
Very funny.
very funny.
Clever, like it and follows its own rules
Mhm.
very well and like with a lot of fun.
Right. And I just wonder,
that's well put.
and we'll see, are good movies enough anymore?
No.
You guys say no. 'Cause I'm
I-
telling you.
I'm
This is
holding
like-
my thought.
Sinners,
This year is important for
this
that.
is like
Yeah.
it's finally maybe turning a little bit, but it's been like a tough year. You know,
There's
I
a
mean,
gang-
it's just been a
This cuts both
you know?
ways. This cuts both ways because if Thunderbolts and Superman and Fantastic Four underperform, then what?
Well, then the question is, are movies enough anymore?
Well, we can save that existentialist conversation for a future episode. Van, you're the best. We can hear you on Higher Learning,
Higher Learning,
Midnight Boys,
Midnight Boys,
The Rewatchables,
The Rewatchables,
What else?
Anywhere.
You're gonna come on Jam Session soon.
Jam Session.
Yeah.
Jam session. You were on Press Box recently.
I was on
with
Press
Joel.
Box
That was
recently.
fun.
That was a lot of fun. I think I brought too much heat. But no. I'm extremely thrilled.
How come I haven't been invited on Higher Learning?
Really? You could be. You know what? Let me tell you why we need to. So we had Omar Miller from the Sinners on Higher Learning today. And
today,
no kidding. Today, it'll be out tomorrow.
You know he's great in 8 Mile.
He's great.
White representation.
I'm
Thank
the
you. He's actually very good in this movie.
Very.
He's really good in this movie.
He's important. He's a key role.
We have to do something for Rachel. What we need is the big picture, because I've been saying that
she doesn't watch movies.
She doesn't watch movies.
I know this about her.
We did top 5 black vampires on Higher Learning.
Okay.
He said Blade, and then he was astonished because Rachel has never seen Blade.
That's really sad.
And so you guys need to help her by making a list of essential movies. She hates The Princess Bride. She hates it.
Just essential movies ever?
Well, essential movies for her to watch.
Well,
I'll give you the year of her birth, and then
what movies? Are there any movies she does like?
That would be helpful.
Princess Bride is a no.
She doesn't like Princess Bride.
Okay.
She likes.
So she doesn't like fun.
She doesn't like movies that are perfect.
Okay.
Which The Princess Bride is in every single way, except for the fact that they ain't got no black people in it. But we'll allow it. So that's what you can do. You guys, we can bring you guys on, and we can have a conversation with Rachel about the movies that she has to see. We'll do the big picks, essential Rachel movies.
All right.
Okay.
Man, racial movies.
You're not going to bring me on to talk about Trump?
We could do all of that.
Okay.
The police.
Just noting that. Yeah, the police. Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts about the police. I got inside information.
There you go.
Man, thank you very much. Amanda, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's now go to my conversation with Ryan Coogler. For the first time on The Big Picture, the great Ryan Coogler. Very happy and honored to have him here. Ryan, I want to start with this. After 2 Black Panther films and Creed, was it important for you to make an original story at this stage of your career with Sinners?
Yeah, I would say absolutely, man. And like it was more like at this stage of my life, like I work with a lot of my friends, and I could feel us all kind of like transitioning into like a different mode. You know, everybody's life was changing around me. Like people who didn't have kids, man, having kids now, and they big, and they getting ready to start school, and they joining baseball teams, and you know, like taking piano lessons, and people buying minivans and shit. You know what I'm saying? So it, you know, like you know, we got companies now, and we no longer like the youngest people in the room when we walk into it. You know, and I realized, you know, I had been making movies, you know, for 12 years now, that had been, you know, going into international cinemas, and I still hadn't done anything. I was like all me, you know, and that scared me, bro. I had a conversation recently with Michael Fleming where I talked about that, but what scared me more was realizing that pretty soon I wasn't gonna be able to pick up the phone and call everybody who I want to make a movie with and get them to like fully commit, just because like the direction that their lives were going. You know what I mean? Like people were starting to get offers to direct movies and different type of full-time positions. You know what I'm saying? Like my picture editor, Michael Shara, who's cut all my stuff. You know, his son's like I mentioned, man, joining a baseball team and like getting serious about it, and like it was starting to become so complicated that I kind of panicked a little bit. Realized I had this really cool story I wanted to tell, and you know, realized Ludwig was free, and had Zenzi, my producer, and my wife call around and check on Hannah and Beekler, and my production designer Ruth Carter, costume designer Autumn Arkapaw, cinematographer, call in and check on them and see what their schedules were looking like, and I checked in with Mike B and realized, man, we might have an opportunity to go, you know. So we went, you know, we went like a bat out of hell, bro. Like I used to return kicks, like kickoffs when I played football. You know, that was one of the things I was really good at. And like I remember, sometimes I would like think I saw something, you know, like in the wedge. Like sometimes somebody would slip,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or,
There was a hole. A hole opened up.
Yeah. Well, it's not there yet, but I think it might be there. You know what I mean? And then you just gotta go. You know what I mean? Run like it's gonna open up. And that was what this process was, man. Like and I picked just the right time where everybody could kind of run with me. You know, I don't think it'll happen like this again, to be honest.
It's so interesting to hear you say that because I know you're a very modest person, but a lot of those people are getting a lot of big looks in part because of the work that you guys all did together on these movies over the years. So I have to assume they still have a kind of loyalty to you and want to come together to make something when you're like, I have an idea.
Yeah, but the thing is, bro, it's like, as much as they owe to me, I'll owe to them first and foremost. But the other piece is like, when it comes to people's kids, bro, and their lives, like it doesn't matter. You know what
I hear.
mean? Like,
I have a 4-year-old. I hear you.
Yeah, it don't matter what our history is. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's the same for me. You know, I got a couple kids now, and like, if I gotta choose between them and anybody else, like, you know, the answer is them. You know what I mean? And like that was what I was watching. Like, I was watching like the kind of people we were going to be for like the next 20, 30 years. It was solidifying, bro. You know what I'm saying? And like, you know, look, for instance, like one of my closest friends, Ludwig, he's also Chris Nolan guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's also John Favreau's guy now. You know what I'm saying? And like, if I catch him at the wrong time, he's not gonna have any time for me. You know what I'm saying? That's just the reality of it. You know, like in you know, when I had a gap, bro, where I needed a commitment from him, very different from any other time I called him before. I needed him to be an executive producer on this. I needed him to move his family to Louisiana. You know, I needed his wife to work on this. You know what I'm saying? I needed his all in a way that he could probably never give it again. You know, like you know, and bless these folks, man. Once they understood the urgency of what I was trying to do, you know what I mean? Everybody showed up for me, man. And then at that point, you know, you look up and you in Louisiana, man, and everybody's kids is down there. You know? Then you realize, oh man, I can't let these people down. You know, like
it's an amazing thing that you're able to assemble these people. You know, we met a long time ago around Black Panther, and we had a conversation. And one of the stories that you told me at that time was that before you were starting on Black Panther, you had a conversation with Francis Ford Coppola, and he told you to check out Brigadoon. I remember you telling me that. And I was wondering if you had any version of that, if you went to anyone, if you linked up with anybody who told you to look at something, or if you just looked at something for yourself before you started making a movie like Sinners.
I looked at something for myself, bro. I looked at Don't Look Now, which was a movie that I've been hearing about, and I owned it. You know what I mean? I bought it a long time ago. It was something that it was actually something like really, it was oddly like clawing at me. You know how that is, bro. When you buy a movie and it's like, I'm gonna get to this at some point. You know what I'm saying? And I was watching some YouTube video. It came up, and I said, "Man, let me look at this thing." You know, and I watched it. I watched it right before. Like I didn't really, you know, I was so green, bro. When I did the first Panther, that I consulted with a lot of people, man. Like I consulted with Chris and Emma, and Francis was the big one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had this history of like taking on larger than life things and coming on the other side with them feeling original and bespoke. You know what I'm saying? And that was what I was trying to figure out, man. Like throwing myself into the gauntlet. And coming out with someone on the other side that still felt like me. And he gave me some incredible advice when it came out. His number one piece of advice was bring my family with me. And I followed that I followed that since that initial conversation. We've had several since. You know, but for this one, man, I talked to Chris and Emma about the format. You know, when large format became something that we were discussing and thinking about, because they had just navigated, you know, both camera packages we ended up using. We used different lenses for them on our System 65 package. We used the Ultra Panavision 276 lens. You seen the film, I imagine.
Yep. What did he tell you? What did he share with you about working in those formats?
Yeah, man. He basically told me not to be scared. You know, and don't let anybody bow down to the camera on set. You know, he acknowledged that it's an intimidating piece of equipment. You know, and that because he uses a lot of handheld camera work in his history, and I know it's cameras you can't handhold. The sync sound cameras you can handhold the
IMAX,
the high speed. All right, so I'm a nerd out.
Go for it. This is the place. Do it.
The catch of the IMAX camera package is that it is technically not a sync sound camera. In that, I think the new version that he has on the Odyssey is, but the one that they shot Oppenheimer with is the same one they shot Dunkirk with, is the same one they shot the last two Dark Knights with. These cameras are massive cameras that are ripping celluloid through the gate, 15 perfs per picture at 24 pictures per second, right? So they sound like somebody took 7 weed whackers and tied them in a steel box and had them going, synchronized. You know what I'm saying? That's what So if you want to shoot an over the shoulder dialogue scene, that camera's gonna be all over the dialogue. It is automatically gonna be ADR. You know what I'm saying? The 5 perf 65mm camera package, the System 65, has 2 sync sound camera bodies. Sync sound. So now these sound like action and it's rolling and you don't hear anything. You know what I'm saying? Unless you put your ear all the way up to the blimp. Now, all of that soundproofing, because that camera is doing a lot of work ripping that 65 millimeter Kodak celluloid through the gate at just 5 perfs per second. You know what I mean? Like so it's a little less mechanics happening there, but still very violent, still very loud. But all of that soundproofing is heavy. It's insanely heavy. So it becomes a 100-pound camera system with zero ergonomics. So it is impossible to handhold the sync sound version of that camera. You understand? And Chris comes from the school that I also come from, the school of whatever works for the scene. So you'll see some of those movies. He's handholding that camera a lot. You know what I mean? And when you decide to shoot System 65 and you want a sync sound camera happening, you're not handholding that,
right?
And you ain't steady camming neither. You know what I mean?
You just need a setup.
It's just too heavy. You are on sticks. You're on a crane.
Yeah.
Or the camera's on the ground. You know what I mean? And so he was acknowledging that. There's another version of this camera that is the high-speed System 65 camera. Now this is basically the same camera without the soundproofing. Okay, so now this camera is about 60 pounds. That camera can be handheld. That camera can be put on a steady cam. But now your dialogue with that camera, ADR immediately. You know what I mean? Because it's almost as loud as, maybe if not louder than the IMAX camera. You know what I mean?
I actually had a question about this for you because I talked to Hoytema about Oppenheimer and carrying that thing around and what that was like for the actors and the intimacy how intimacy is hard. And this movie in particular that you made is very sexy, very sensual, very up close,
Yeah.
It's very physical. Hearing you say "Don't Look Now" is not surprising when you see the movie. But when you got this giant piece of machinery up in someone's face, when you're trying to do a scene like that, is that hard for the actors? Was it different for you than what you'd done in the past?
So Chris's advice to me was to use it like a Super 8 camera. He said, use like you would normally use your camera, and he told me straight up, he was like, man, you'll see scenes in Oppenheimer where I got that camera right up against Killian's face, and yeah, bro, we got close with that thing, man. That was a part of what the movie had to be. It had to be the sexiest movie I ever made. We knew we were going to get intimate with these cameras, man. And to be honest with you, everybody brings their A game with that. When you shooting film in general, I missed it since I did Frugal. Digital. To be honest, man, it's hard for people to take it serious. You know what I mean? Because people just take it for granted, bro. you know what I'm saying? You gotta go out your way to have folks really respect when the camera's rolling. You know what I mean? And because you got that, your DPs generally in the dit tent. And everybody's got these high def monitors everywhere, man. You know what I'm saying? It's when you bust out that film camera, bro, and you hear it rolling, and man, you on the clock for real. And if you don't get it right, you're gonna miss it. We're gonna have to reload. you know what I mean? Everybody's right there. You know what I mean? And the focus that you get, man, the attention that goes. So people hold their breath, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing when it's close to the actors. You know what I'm saying? It feels like you're doing something timeless, especially with these cameras, bro. They look old. You know what I mean? The reality of it, man. I had never seen a lens that looked like that Ultra Panavision lens. And I'm in a lot of movies, bro. Busting that thing out and knowing, okay, man, they shot Ben-Hur on this thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it does something to you.
I'm interested in kind of like the inversion of the intimate stuff too. I have to ask you about, there's a sequence in the middle of the movie, the sort of musical centerpiece of the movie, which I thought was like one of the boldest, coolest things I've seen in a studio movie in forever. And I was like, this is just so outside of the pocket of what this movie was, and it's taking it to a totally different place. But it's also like very acrobatic in the filmmaking, and you're taking like big visual risks with it. And I was trying to figure out how you actually did it and why doing something that is that sort of like fantastical and historical inside of this movie was something that you wanted to do.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I believe in look, like when I do my job, bro, I got certain responsibilities, right? It's an expectation of me as a writer director to be fluent in film language. Like what are the points where I must do the thing that can only happen in this movie. Like in communication and through film language. You know what I'm saying? If you're making a good movie, you get a few moments like that. The great movies are chock full of them. you know what I mean? Like things that can only happen in this, in a movie number one, and in this movie number two. You know what I mean? And while I was writing the screenplay, it was after having done the research about this music that my uncle was obsessed with, and realizing that this music changed the world. But these people who are living this reality had no idea that this music that they lived for just for Saturday nights, you know what I'm saying, with how the type of outsized global impact that an art form could have. Maybe the most impactful American art form. And for this time, it was just theirs. You know what I mean? But they also had the luck of being born Black and so that their adulthood was going to be experienced in the 30s. You know what I mean? They wouldn't know anything other than sharecropping, Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? Backbreakingly racist laws. Backbreakingly racist economy. You know what I mean? That's what and they would live for the hope that maybe their descendants would have it better. And I'm realizing, like in this movie, I'm about to have these characters encounter cosmically horrific vampiric violence. You know what I'm saying? Like that's coming from them in this movie. And I have to buttress that with something cosmically beautiful. You know what I mean? And it's something that's true that can only be communicated through film language. You know what I'm saying? And that was how we came up with that. That was how we came up with that. With realizing that the movie needed that scene.
I love that choice. That part is incredible to me. One theme I wanted to ask you about in your movies that I feel like recurs a lot is this moment when two disparate cultures like confront each other and are forced to understand each other, right? So like you got the Jabari and T'Challa, you got Sly and Adonis, you got people coming from different walks of life, like you got the Taliban and you got the Wakandans. There's always a this sort of like confrontation in this movie. Yeah. You've got Black American blues and Irish folk music, and this and obviously vampires and humans, right? These two different cultures that are kind of like forced to meet each other. I was hoping you could just kind of talk about like why you tend to synchronize the movies that way and what's interesting about it in this one.
I mean, I never thought about it as astute as you just described it. Yeah, Sean, that's incredible, bro. But look, man, like I'm a Black man from Oakland, California. My grandmothers are probably the second wave of the Great Migration. I got an Irish first name, bro. Not only do I have an Irish first name, but my baby brother has an Irish first name. His name's Keenan. And I'm from the Bay Area, which I think, with the exception of like Long Beach or something, is like the most diverse place in the country and one of the most diverse places on the planet. You know what I mean? So every day I've been, every day of my life I've been encountering, cultures that are different from mine and negotiating that and having family members that married into other cultures and cultures that married into mine, that's my reality. But that's also the reality of the Delta Blues. It's a lot of literature written about the fact that Charlie Patton was likely part Choctaw. Everybody knows, man, Irish people were around and were influencing that music. and we're, the banjo comes from Africa, but now it's most associated with Appalachian music. You know what I mean? And those are people of Irish descent there. It's so ironic when you look at the history of those people. It's a ton of crossover. You know what I mean? Like the dichotomy of living in a place of extreme agricultural abundance, but starving under as a result of a backbreaking colonial and capitalist system that's not your own. Having your way of life outlawed, your way of worship demonized. The way that you dance demonized. You know what I'm saying? Like all of these things, and it was exciting for me to have a character who presents as a 30-year-old Appalachian, but was really a centuries-old Irish vampire who's finding himself in 1932 Clarksdale, Mississippi. Who does he want to hang out with? Who does he identify with? Like these are questions I was asking myself. That made a lot of sense. What music is he going to be attracted to? At the time, I was listening to a lot of music, man, like a lot of Delta blues music, but also just like a lot of black music from different eras. And I was getting obsessed with this Marvin Gaye song, bro, which a lot of people consider like the sexiest song ever written by a man. And the lyrics are, "I want you, but I want you to want me too," which is like so powerful and sexy. And I was thinking of, I knew I needed that from my villain. I mean, this idea of, I'm strong enough to take, but that's not satisfying for me. I need to convince you to want to be taken. You know what I mean? And that felt synonymous with the vampire. It felt synonymous with blues music. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just made sense. And bro, when we brought Jack on board, his late father was an Irish immigrant to the UK, and he just upped the ante like so far with his own personal truth. Like, I'm dealing with the love and the grief of my uncle. He brought the love and the grief of his father. And when we shot that scene, the counterpart to that other scene you're talking about, the Rocky Road to Dublin scene, man. Bro, we shot that scene, man, and he pulled me close and he whispered in my ear and said, "Man, it's my father's birthday today." And I just became a baller, everything. But it was something else I worked on this movie that I'll be crazy to try to repeat. You know what I'm saying?
I loved how you twin those two things. It's just like amazingly effective. And Sean Fennessey, you might imagine, is Irish, so I saw a little of myself in there.
Yeah.
One thing I need to ask you about is you're one of the few filmmakers that I've talked to on this show who's under 40 years old, who's directed 5 features that have been released in movie theaters. That is becoming a rarer thing, and I know theatrical is really important to you. How are you feeling about movie theaters, the movie-going experience, where it's at right now? Because there's been a lot of talk this year.
Look, man, it's just a subject matter I can't talk about without becoming emotional, bro. Look, man, when I was researching this movie, I found out that my grandmother, who's 96 years old, I found out what her first date with my grandfather was. Took her to the movies. He took her to the movies, and he tried to make out with her in the movie. And she told him, "We can do that after. I'm trying to watch this."
You know what the movie was? What was the movie?
She couldn't remember. But she remembered the conversation she had with him. You know what I mean? And me and Zinzi, who's my producer on this, most important person in my life, our first date was to the movies. We went to go see Bring It On.
Oh, nice.
By Peyton Reed. Yeah. Starring Gabrielle and Kristen Dunst. Yeah. Like, look, bro, for me, it's everything, man. My favorite cinema in LA has been closed since the pandemic. Man, ArcLight Hollywood.
So painful. Sucks here.
Yeah, man. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the experience of watching, these movies at a time when, I was pre-social media, man, when you couldn't get a movie spoiled before you 7 ways from Sunday. You know what I mean? And every time I set the camera up, bro, I'm thinking about the feelings that great filmmakers gave me, in my formative years and now. I love you. I think to quote a friend of mine, Miriam Bakabza, who I went to school with, it's a giant empathy machine. You know what I'm saying? I think it's best experienced with strangers, in the dark where you can't judge each other. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's getting incredibly expensive, but I'm making an IMAX film, man. This thing is gonna be on every PLF imaginable. You know what I mean? And like the cost, bro, coupled with inflation of taking a date to the movies, man. You know what I'm saying? By the time you get your parking and your babysitter, you know what I mean, and all that stuff. I know it's substantial, but it still is such a democratized form of entertainment, man. You know what I mean? Like it was always the thing for the people, for the working man. You know what I'm saying? To go have a nice night out and travel somewhere and experience something. You know, I'll fight tooth and nail to keep that around. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what I would do without it, to be honest with you. And I always consider myself fortunate that my movies have come out in theaters. It's really got nothing to do with me. It's just the timing, bro. Had Fruitville been made a calendar year later, we might be having a different conversation. Straight up. And I think about these things, man.
I'm really glad that you're still putting movies in movie theaters and making them for them. Ryan, we end every episode of this show by asking filmmakers what's the last great thing they have seen. Have you seen anything that's moved you recently?
It's a great question, bro. I've been incredibly busy. Could
be new or old. It doesn't have to be a new thing.
Yeah, no. It was one of these days.
Yes. So fun.
It was one of these days, man. And Sharita Singleton wrote that, bro. I know her father. Rest in peace. But I was blown away by it.
What did you like?
I like that it felt like Friday, which is a movie that I love, but it felt so feminine. You know what I mean? I love Kiki, and I was like blown away by her performance and SZA's performance. I was blown away by filmmaking, bro. I love the how it celebrated the resourcefulness of Black women. You know what I'm saying? I love one of my favorite scenes is when you realize her mom has a store in the jungles. You know what I'm saying? People coming in, I love it, man. You know what I mean? It felt very in conversation with our scene with Annie. But I love the cinematography. I love the humor. It just made me feel alive, bro.
It's a great pick. One of my favorites of the year. Ryan Coogler, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Man, thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Thank you to Ryan Coogler. Thanks to Van. Thanks to Amanda. Thanks to Jack Sanders for his work on this episode. Next week, we have our next 25 for 25 entry. I will not reveal what it is.
Do you want to guess, Van?
25 for 25.
25 best movies of the century.
I know. People have been really telling me, they've been peppering me, tell Sean to do this movie, tell Sean to do this movie, tell Sean to do this movie. I can't think of
I'm
it.
involved too.
What? Oh. What did they tell you that we should do?
Yeah. Oh, so many different movies.
Guess what we're doing next.
Somebody told me y'all should do Ghost Dog. I'm like, they're not going to fucking do Ghost Dog.
I would love to do Ghost Dog. I don't know if I could get Amanda on board with Ghost Dog.
Next movie, Moonlight.
It's not Moonlight.
Okay. Yeah.
That was my
Spoiler
guess.
alert.
Good job.
Spoiler alert.
See you then.